Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the latest episode of Rose Tinted Ceilings. Today, I get to interview our podcast hosts. My name is Nihan, and before I open the floor, I am so grateful for these two young women, Isabella Wang and Maggie Howe. We came across in a women's show where I was hosting a mental health booth, and they came to interview me. And that interview changed my life. They were so receiving, so open to what I was creating in the world. And then they hosted me in their podcast. These young women have been such a contribution to me. And I got curious. I wanted to ask them questions because in this podcast, they have guests that are thought leaders, change makers, storytellers, and they highlight them. But these two magical ladies are change makers themselves and the leaders of now and future. And I really wanted for their voices to be heard as well. So I am curious. Will you two please introduce yourselves and let's go?
Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. Thank you, first of all, Nihan, for asking us to do this. I think that was a special moment for Maggie and I. So I'm Isabella. I'm a grade 12 student from Vancouver. I've always been passionate about storytelling, about advocacy, and especially gender equity, and that's why we're here today. And I'm hoping to carry that into my future as well.
I'm Maggie. I have known Isabella since, well, I want to say forever, but just the 8th grade, if we're being honest. And I think we connected because we have that shared love for being able to use our own voices to uplift other people. And we've been able to meet some of the coolest people ever through this podcast, and Nihan being one of them. So having you here to interview us today is so cool, and I'm so excited for this episode.
I'd like to start by once again acknowledging how inspiring you have been for me. Ever since I was a kid, I knew I was here to create change on the planet. I'm going to turn 40 this year, and my life has been a series of making change, but also getting into all kinds of distractions and hopelessness and bitterness, and then getting myself out of there. And I always had this inspiration. I always wanted to be an inspiration for younger generations. And I've always mentored them and I've always learned from them. That is a passion of mine. And when I met you, I knew that it's time now on the planet, that it's time now we listen to younger people. Everyone in my generation and before that got a little jaded. They have solidified the ways of doing things and they bought into fear and they bought into desperation and hopelessness. Don't get me wrong, they have so much to contribute, they have so much awareness. However, some of this energy got channeled into this like stop point and like, I know things are, and then along comes you and younger generations that say, no, I know something different is possible. And I actually have the energy. So I'd like to start by asking, what do you know for our future on the planet? What are you two here for? Not a big question at all.
Not at all. Just, the future of everything we know. Yeah, that's such a great question because it's honestly something that we have to think about every day, but also not consciously, you know what I mean? I think it's very hard for our generation to forget that the world is going in a certain direction. Like it's all around us. We always have to be somewhat aware of it. But because we were born aware of it, we've been taught it since kindergarten, oh, this is the way things are going. It almost seems normalized a bit. So I think one of the biggest things our generation has to do right now is like, yeah, we are aware of this, but like, what are we gonna do about where the world is going? What about you, Isabella?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think it's this idea of there's so much I in society and not enough we is something I always like to say. And I think finding that sense of collectiveness and that sense of community is something that's becoming increasingly more difficult as we're pitted against each other and told that we have to kind of follow this one lane or one path to find what success looks like in our lives.
I think that's one of the things too is you think that, since every generation is it's only getting bigger and bigger and bigger that we'd realize, wow, the world is so big and it's big enough for all of us and success is going to look different for all of us. That's what you think would happen. But it doesn't really feel that way sometimes. It feels like the world gets even smaller because of social media, especially the internet. You're only seeing a few people highlighted and you're like, damn, if I'm not like that, am I really successful? So I think just being a bit more aware, like Isabella said, there are so many of us on this planet. Imagine what it would be like if we were all a community.
And what if we are? You've touched a point. Thank you so much. Let's talk about success. The definition of success messes with us.
Mm-hmm.
And what if success could be different for each of us? So I wonder, do you ever reflect, what is success for you? That you know that you cannot fail because failure does not exist and there are people around the world who have your back. What would success be for you?
Maggie and I actually we do kind of a New Year vision board each year, and when we did ours this year, we talked a bit about that, about the changes going on in our lives and how we would look at success going forward. And I think finding that sense of purpose and that sense of identity is something that's going to change for us in maybe 5 years or 10 years. I think for myself right now, success for me is learning as much as I can about the world and trying to be as informed and educated as I can, but also learning from different perspectives is important to me. And I think seeing as many stories as I can and hopefully taking that into the future and being able to uplift others. But I think learning and listening is the foundation of all of that.
Yeah, for sure. Like, again, as Isabella said, we do this every year. We look at our vision bingos, our vision boards, and we have to say, what do we want to have accomplished 365 days from now? But as we were sitting there filling out this bingo, filling out our goal sheet, it was really hard. It took us a long time for us to think of 24 goals that we wanted to put. Because success for us, I don't think was really measured by, we need to hit this number of this thing. We need to hit this quantifiable metric. We found it a lot easier to put words, like adjectives, around our bingos. Isabella can attest to this. Hers is full of just adjectives. So things like peace, or things like perseverance. Those things were a lot easier for us to define as, okay, if I can prioritize this in my life, then that would be success. And I think that's what success is to me, is just kind of building a stronger, almost just like sense of identity, right? Because, you grow up, you hear you're only competing against your past self, and you just don't believe it, you don't listen, you ignore that. When I'm, growing up, I'm starting to realize maybe they had a point. So to me, success right now is just like staying strong, like within your own person, within your community, and not letting those outside little factors push you a little too far.
You brought up something so beautiful that I'd like to highlight for anyone watching us today. You mentioned some adjectives like peace and perseverance. This is actually huge because when you actually know the quality, I call it energy, you called it adjectives. So whatever it is for you, because then that becomes your priority, and then that affects your choices and actions. When you're presented with a set of different choices and possibilities, then you get to look and ask, which one will actually create more peace in my life? Mm-hmm. And that's actually a beautiful compass that so many people have forgotten, people of all ages. So if you could have, I'm not going to say advice, but if you could give some tips about maybe someone watching us of any generation is maybe struggling with the definition of success in society right now, what would you tell them?
Ooh, I think one piece of advice that really helped me define what I actually care about and what I actually need to consider myself successful. I think would I care if I completed this thing? Like, let's say like got this grade or got this job or did this thing. Would I care about that if I couldn't tell anyone about it? Right? Like if not a single person could ever know that I accomplished this thing, that I did this, that I did that, would I care as much? And if the answer is no, then you might think, do I really want this? Or am I only doing it because that's what people think that people should be doing? I think just making that little clarification in my head has been so helpful.
This is so advanced. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah, honestly, I think what Maggie says is really powerful. I think the ability to question yourself it's something really hard to develop. I think for myself, kind of coupled with that is just intentionally allowing yourself space to sit with yourself and to actually think about that. I think oftentimes we're all go, 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 and there's this kind of culture of hustle, and it's hard to find space for yourself to actually sit with yourself and think intentionally about what your next step is. So I think, blocking out your day and just sitting with yourself, honestly.
Thank you. One of the things that I have to remind myself when it comes to success is a while ago I realized for me, true success is having peace. Am I at peace with myself? Do I have this ease on my day? And also changing one person's life, one kid's life, that day or ever. If I can gift something to someone that brings a possibility to their world, that is success for me. And I have to remind myself that sometimes because the metrics are everywhere. We have every opportunity to compare ourselves to others every single moment. And this is the part where I'd like to acknowledge the challenge, the gift and the challenge that your generations are facing. When I was your age, we didn't have social media. I would have probably ruined my life using social media. And I look at you and you have this level of awareness in your words and the way you carry yourself in the world. It's not about perfection, but I do see this level of awareness. What, first and foremost, what did it take you to get here? And do you ever face any challenges when it comes to comparing yourself to others or to the metrics of society right now? Knowing that you two are highly successful on all metrics, actually. Let's also acknowledge that as well.
Isabella, do you have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think that hits incredibly hard for us. I think, Maggie, we've had this discussion before as well. I think that we definitely continue to compare ourselves. I think from the outside, people can look really, I guess, put together, you would say. And I think I look at other people in that way as well. But everyone has their struggles and everyone compares themselves. And I think realizing that for me, maybe other people look at me and think that I don't. But really, I'm probably up at night and thinking about what I'm doing wrong or what is it that I feel might not be right for my path. So I think definitely that is something you still struggle with. Yeah.
Exactly like Isabella said, when you're in your own head and you're comparing yourself and you're freaking out and you're getting into that spiral, you think, damn, how come I'm the only one ever feeling this way? And I'm looking at all these people, I'm like, they're so put together. But then you talk to someone about it and you're like, oh, that's exactly what I'm thinking. You're thinking the same thing I've been thinking for the past 2 years. And I think that's why having open conversations with your friends is so important because you will realize that some of the struggles you've been having are not, you're not alone in them. And I think that's so important.
Does it help you to know that you're not alone? And what would be, this is like hypothetical, but I'm really curious, what can we create in society? Like in general, what can we be exposed to on our daily lives that would actually give us that sense?
It's a really good question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, the first thing that comes to mind is just real, raw stories and spaces for vulnerability. I think that we find too often that we have to put up a front or that, in this comparison that we were talking about, we have to put up our best selves, but sometimes our best selves means being vulnerable, and I think that holding that space is becoming more and more difficult. And I think that we need to create more spaces like that.
I want to speak to the social media side of things a little bit. I think we can all be a little bit more transparent in the ways that we present ourselves online, because even if you're thinking, I just want to show the best version of myself out there, other people do take that to heart. Like, as you're scrolling and you're taking in these people's profiles, you're not really thinking this is their very best self that they're putting forward. It is what they want you to see. You're thinking, oh, this is just their regular life. So having a bit more transparency in the way that we interact with content online, what we take from it, I think can be really important in stopping that comparison spiral.
Wow, comparison spiral. Thank you. I'm going to use that term. Is it a thing? Comparison spiral?
Probably.
Well, you just coined the word, that phrase that will come in really handy. Are you going through a comparison spiral? Thank you. I have more questions for you, but before we go there, I'd like to ask you, what can we ask you today? What would you like the world to hear that maybe that hasn't been asked of you before?
Wow, what a question. Honestly, I don't think there's one question to us where like you have to ask us this. In my opinion, at least, is more so we can talk about anything. I think that comes with being a podcast host. It's really just what are other people interested in, right? Because as podcast hosts, I think a lot of time it's not only just what we want to know, but what could be beneficial to other people to ask about, like what can be beneficial to our audiences. So I think we kind of get that. Questions are just an opening a conversation, and any conversation can come from any question. So it's not really a good answer to what question should you ask us, but the answer is like, honestly, we're open books. We're very open books.
I don't like the dichotomy of older generation, younger generation, but there is a fact that when like age is seen as so important, and usually older people tell younger people what to do or how things go, and they have created structures that we're living the consequences of right now. And I'd love to hear, how would you actually like to be supported or listened to, or is that at all an issue for you? Like, I remember growing up, I had this enthusiasm of like something different is possible, and everybody would be like, well, yeah, you say that now. Like, there would be this bitterness and everybody trying to tell me what to do and how things are. That would actually, maybe some of it was valuable, but most of it would just like be this layer of dust that I would just get so depressed of, like, maybe I don't have a place in this world. I wonder if that's still happening these days.
I think, honestly, connecting to what you said, entertaining the possibility, I think is the number one thing that I guess older generation, quote unquote, can provide. I definitely experienced that as well. And I think that, that kind of mindset is what shuts down a lot of our youth from dreaming, right? And I think keeping that dream alive is important, and that is the only way that we can break structures and break systems that might no longer serve us. And I think that just entertaining the possibility and entertaining the conversation is incredibly important, and hosting that dialogue and ensuring that we're speaking with open and inclusive language rather than, shutting down opinions, and keeping the debate alive.
And just to speak on like the other side of the coin, I think what younger generations can do a little bit too is include older generations in these future hopes and future dreams, because a lot of the dreams that like younger people have is going to benefit everyone, and including older generations with so much more experience in those plans is way more beneficial. It destroys that kind of dichotomy that might be harmful. We get a lot more worldview and perspectives in it, and I think it just joins together the world a little bit more, just to be like, hey, like, we do have hopes and dreams, and your generation too is going to be included in said hopes and dreams. Everything's going to be perfect and sunshine and rainbows. I think is what we can do a little bit more.
This general invitation of maybe getting out of polarity and actually listening to each other and that vulnerability. I think the theme of today is still continuing. What lights you up? What is your dream for you and for what you are creating, what you're hoping for the world?
I think for myself, the first thing I think of is wanting a world where every child has access to opportunity. No matter what they're born into, no matter their background, they're given equal opportunity, equal access, and I guess in a way, equal chance to develop and grow into their potential. I think that that is the root of a lot of our inequities in the world. So I think that that chance to explore education is really important to me, and I hope for that to be a huge thing that we work towards.
And would you share with us your work with UNICEF as well?
Of course, yeah. I do a lot of children's rights advocacy in different spaces, including UNICEF, and just working to ensure that our policymakers, like we spoke about, are co-creating with youth rather than, I guess we say, empty consulting, and ensuring that transparency is there when we're developing these policies and developing strategies to ensure that youth are included in conversations about them.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think youth are some of the most forgotten voices in conversations sometimes. Which I don't really see why, because again, youth are, like people say, it's so cheesy to say, I guess, but in the future. And as well said, there's a lot of bright minds out there who are just never going to get the same opportunity because of factors that aren't their fault, which is really just awful. So trying to level that playing field as much as we can, I think, like, again, it's a really nice mission. And I think, personally, to me, I just want the world to be a little bit kinder to each other. Like, from children to children, generation across generations, everything could be so much better. Like, whenever I'd like just picture a world where every single person just gives one other person one compliment per day. That's one compliment per day, but that's 8 billion people. That
Wow.
multiplies. I don't know the math there, but that like, imagine how better the world would be. So I think just having a world where we're all just like a bit more empathetic to each other and understanding each other could change a lot of things.
Do you have any stories that you'd like to share of those like daily moments, like these small moments or big moments that have made a difference for you, or you've made a difference in somebody's life that in turn lit up your day?
Ooh. I don't think this is a specific, well, I can think of a specific conversation, but like every time I'm in an Uber and I'm talking to the driver, I have the best time of my life. I like those drives more than whatever event I'm going to. Every single time. Like, one time I was in the car with this Uber driver. We were on our way to Vancouver. It was just like 30 minutes. And I found out about his entire life story, about how he worked in the film industry in Vancouver. And he told me so much about experience there. Because I was like, oh, like, I work in media too. He's like, oh, and we just talked for so long. And again, just like 30 minutes. And that just made me realize it just shows you how similar you can be with someone you pass by on the street, how much you can learn from anyone you pass by, how much you can grow from one conversation with anyone who you just see just in your city, who you might never talk to. So it's moments like that where I just think that the world is such a joy to be in.
I think similarly, one of the things I really enjoy doing is talking to people on the bus. I'm definitely the kind of person that likes to strike up a random conversation. And I think that one person that stood out to me that I still remember today is this elderly lady who was dressed head to toe in full purple.
I remember being told about this.
Diva. And she told me about her life working in international development and how she got to see so many places around the world and see how their lives are so incredibly different, yet shared in this kind of sense of shared humanity. And that was beautiful to me. And I remember that day especially, I was definitely upset over something, and I needed that reminder. And I think that's just absolutely beautiful that we can get that from a random person.
I'm so excited to hear this because I live for those moments. Literally every day, I make a point of going out, even if when I'm working at from home, just to engage with people, because that engagement really feeds me. And I love listening to people, making their day, or receiving from them, really. This is really exciting. And so I'm a neurodivergent person, and I don't have a filter of like, oh, that's a stranger. Nobody's a stranger for me. And I know sometimes it can be funny. But I am so grateful to meet you as well. And it's so apparent also by the way you engage with people, like when I first met you and the way you host the podcast as well. This is such a gift. And let's just invite the people who are listening to this who also have that joy of engagement with other people that maybe are feeling a little weird, of like the odd one out. We're glad you're on the planet, everyone.
I love that. I think like sometimes we get caught in our own heads. You're too busy thinking about what you're gonna do next in your life and what you're worried about right now and what your hopes and dreams are, which is understandable because you know it's your life. But you get a little caught up in that, and then all it takes is again a 5-minute conversation with someone in a line for something or on the bus to make you snap out of that and realize the world is so much bigger than yourself, which can be scary, but to me it always feels so much more hopeful because you hear everyone's stories and you hear the challenges they've been through, but you hear how they came out of it and you're like, huh, if every one of these people who I'm talking to survived a challenge in their life and came out better, who's to say that won't happen to me? So I think one of the best advice we can give to people is just to talk to more people, which can seem so scary. Like I say this to Isabella all the time when she goes up to someone random when we're together and starts a conversation. I go, "How do you do that?" Because I'm not that extroverted. I'm not on that scale. But I think pushing past that fear sometimes and just going up to someone and being like, "Hey, I really like the necklace you're wearing," can be such an influential moment in your life.
Oh my gosh, now I want to ask Nihan, do you have a random interaction story for us?
I have so many. The question is, which one? My favorites are also with my Uber drivers as well. I use Uber a lot. Let's see. I just find that I'm someone who loves giving and taking care of people. And for me, the surprise of engagement with people is I'm thinking I need to give something maybe, or like, let me make their day, or just like, oh, I love your necklace. Oh, I love this. And I end up being so replenished myself when I actually meet people without any walls or barriers, but just like, hi, with that vulnerability. And some of my favorite engagement stories, and I just had a few on my way here. I went to the pool, the aquatic center here in New West, and it was beautiful. And I came across so many children with their parents, little toddlers, the little older ones. And what I love is when I engage with children and I acknowledge them not as, oh, you're a child, but as like, hi, you came to the planet, hello. And I don't know how I do it. I think it's an energy that I am being, and I just like meet them where they're at. And I see the children coming alive. And then one kid in the elevator in the, what do you call that thing?
Stroller?
Stroller, yes.
Okay.
Yes, a kid in the stroller. And I looked at him, and he was with his dad, and he just lit up. I think a lot of people are sleepwalking these days, and some of it is for a good reason. Logistically, life logistics have gotten difficult. It doesn't have to be that way, but this is what's being created in the world right now to separate us, really. A lot of people are sleepwalking, and then when these children see an adult or an older person who's actually really present as them, they light up. And this child started talking. And I have one specific example from the past that one day I met this child and the mom, and the child started talking, and the mom started crying. And I apologized. I thought I did something wrong. And then the mom said, "My child has been nonverbal since birth." So this is a magical example that I could not have controlled or wished for. But I find that there is magic in those engagements. We get to change people's lives, but not with like, let me change somebody's life today. It's more like when we be ourselves, and when we follow that joy, and when we get out of our own heads, we are changing the world in every moment.
That's so powerful. And I think we can really speak to that kind of childlike wonder sense. I think as children, all we wanted to do was, know everything about the world and talk to every single person we saw and just know what was going on with them, everything, what their story was. And I think as we grew older, because of all the pressures we had, do good in school, plan for your future, get a good job, you kind of lose that childlike curiosity. But I think there's a reason why children love it so much. I think there's a reason why it's all ingrained in us when we were kids, because being curious about other people and the world does bring a lot of joy, I think, to most people. I can't speak for everyone, but I'm assuming it brings a lot of people joy, and I think we can try to bring that back a little bit.
Let's all be a little more like children. I like that.
I love that. I find myself often stopping myself from like, oh no, I need to be an adult. And it just doesn't last. It just gets so boring and I start getting depressed. So what if more of us were more childlike, that childlike sense of wonder? And that's actually what you two has brought to me. Following you, having interacted with you, you reminded me more of that, because I look at you and you're doing big, important work, as well as continuing to create your own lives. And you do carry that wonder, that openness that has been a huge contribution to you, to me. So I'm wondering, anything else I haven't asked you that you'd like the world to hear, or like, is there a contribution that I can be to you, that we can be to you, people who are looking to contribute? What contribution can we be to you? I know at least 20,000 people around the world who are looking to create a different world. How can I create something different? How can I contribute to people who are here to make a change? So what would you ask for if you could ask for anything?
That's a really good question. I think
we have people listening to us now and in the future, people who have connections, people who have resources.
I think the easiest thing that we can to start off the asking by is just saying reach out, whether that's to your friends, just like, hey, how are you doing? To people who you might not talk to as much, reach out to people who you think are cool that you want to learn from, reach out to people with advice that you think might help them, reach out to us with anything. Our DMs are always open, where we love getting messages. I think just anything that increases the connectivity of our world when things can be so isolated is just the ask that I could have. Is just talk to more people. What about you, Isabella?
Yeah, I think building on that, creating more spaces that value each person's uniqueness and I think what each person has to offer to the world. I like to say their calling, their mission, their purpose, and I think a lot of times we can get lost in like we're speaking on the comparison spiral, what other people think that purpose should be. So I think nurturing that and ensuring that we are helping each other stay involved in our own uniqueness and knowing that what we have to offer the world is valuable as well, no matter what kind of comparison might be going on in our heads.
One last question. If anything could be possible, what are your hopes and targets for your podcast?
Ooh.
Isabel and I have been talking about this a lot recently because 2026 we are graduating, we are going to university. So the world is just about to get a whole lot bigger for us, which is, exciting but terrifying, but that means a lot for our podcast. We're just hoping to be able to get a lot more people on, a lot more eyes on the interviews we've already done. And I think we've been talking a lot about expanding beyond like the podcast format for a while now. So maybe in the coming years we might be able to get a chance to kind of jump on that.
Yeah, and I think tackling the broader kind of mission. We want to reach more girls. We want to create more spaces for female solidarity. And I think in that sense, we're reflecting on how far we've come in 2.5 years, I think, of doing this. And considering that, just how much more impact this community can create for girls around the world.
Mhm.
And your consistency and the fact that you have not given up and you kept going and this beautiful creation is in the world is so impressive to me. Sometimes when I'm just about to slack on things like, oh, I'm not going to create this, I go to your Instagram, I go to your YouTube channel, and I go, look at what these girls have created. They did not give up. And look at this beautiful work out there in the world. So I actually look up to you and use you as my inspiration when I'm about to yeah, it doesn't matter. No, it actually does matter. Thank you so much for answering my questions. I'm
Thank
so
you so
grateful.
much for
Awesome.
interviewing us.